Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Ford Escape. But more specifically, this one is the premium, so it's a pretty high trim level, and it's in a pretty desirable color, which Ford likes to call Star White Metallic Tricoat, which in person it actually looks really good. I've intentionally left this one dirty just to show you how good white holds up when it is covered in a layer of dust compared to a lot of other vehicle colors. But anyways, this vehicle, it's a good one, but it's not perfect. So today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly to help you guys at home decide if this might be the right compact crossover for you and your family, so you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to the Goody Motor Ford group for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below. They sell below MSRP and they ship all over the country. And with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Ford, the 2025 Ford Escape, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. Basically, that helps me know you want to watch more stuff like this, helps the video get shared, and also helps you by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff like this. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Ford or the Escape, there's actually a lot that you guys need to know. This is a crossover, so it is a unibody design vehicle, and the very first one started back in 2001. So they've been around for over 20 years and more than 4 generations, because the 4th generation, which is what this is, actually started back in 2020. And then in 2023 to have a facelift. Altogether, this generation also weighs a couple hundred pounds less than the previous one. It also has a lot of upgrades over the 3rd generation, but for whatever reason, at least in the North American market, its sales number dropped in half when it became the 4th generation. So these still sell pretty well compared to a lot of the other crossovers in the mid 100,000 unit ballpark every year in the US. But even though it's built in Kentucky for the United States market, it actually is sold in a lot of other markets, part of the C2 platform. So the ones that you guys might know close to home is the Lincoln Corsair, or for Ford, it's the Maverick and the Bronco Sport. It all has the same underpinnings underneath the sheet metal in the exterior. That's what this vehicle basically is. This one, being the Platinum, actually has probably the most desirable engine, the 2-liter EcoBoost, which is quite powerful, and you're going to be pretty impressed, I think, with its 0 to 60 in just a little bit. But these are sold basically globally. There's a lot of them, which means there's a lot of parts and a lot of people who can work on them, and that's pretty cool. In typical Ford fashion, there's quite a variety of these. There's actually 6 different trim levels, and the basic one, which has a 1.5-liter engine and only front-wheel drive, that one starts at a much more affordable $30,000. This one being the Platinum, it's actually the highest non-hybrid trim level. It's number 5 out of the 6. And that price point starts at about $36,000, $37,000 depending on your market. And then after this one has a bunch of goodies and add-ons and extras, it's about $42,000 before Goody Motor Ford gives you a huge discount for referencing this video. But if you really want to go to the top tier trim level, you can get a hybrid one. It has a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine with some hybrid components and a kilowatt-hour battery in the back. But this one, for about 42 grand, or the basic one about 37, what do you get? Well, you obviously get the 250 horsepower 2-liter turbo engine, which seems to be a very proven power plant in a lot of those other vehicles. And in fact, the Bronco Sport and the Maverick I've driven both had those, and that was a really fun engine. You also get a lot of the upgraded safety features for this one, but I do need to mention, even though this is a 5-star crash test rated vehicle overall, it is not a top safety pick plus like the Mazda CX-5 or the Subaru Forester or some of those other vehicles, but it still has quite a lot to offer. It also has a heated steering wheel, fancy leather seats, it has a huge panoramic sunroof, it has these 19-inch wheels, which in person I do think they look better than they're showing up on camera, and they have a few other features that you're going to see either on the screen or throughout this video. This being a compact crossover, it fits really well in this parking spot. It also is a joy to drive around town and through the country. You just don't have a lot of heft slowing you down and making you feel big and bloated all over the road. But overall, this one is about 15 feet long. The wheelbase is about 8.8 feet, which I like. That is a pretty big wheelbase for this length of vehicle. It's roughly 6 feet or just over 6 feet wide, about 5.5 feet tall. It weighs about 3,300 to 3,500 pounds. Basically, depending on which engine you have, is a front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And if you really want the hybrid one, tack on an extra couple hundred pounds to the 3,700, 3,800 pound ballpark. What's sad though, is the payload capacity on this. It's only 827 pounds, so that is not class leading by any stretch of the imagination. Subarus are usually 900. Some other vehicles are in the 1100s. So 800 for a 5-seater vehicle is a little bit sad. But it has about 7.5 inches of ground clearance, a 381 final drive ratio, and it can still do a full circle in about 38 feet, making it pretty agile on its feet. The last few things to mention out here is the gas door is located where I like to see it, which is on the driver's side. But even when I lock the vehicle, the gas door doesn't appear to be locking unless it's a delayed reaction, so the bums might attempt to siphon some of your 14.8 gallons of 87 or higher octane. This one with the 2-liter turbo, it is rated for about 23 in the city, about 31 on the highway, so that's basically the lowest numbers you're going to see because the smaller engine might do better in the city and the hybrid is going to do better everywhere. But otherwise it's a Bridgestone Ectopia 225 55 19, and this seems to have about 9/32 at tread depth, which is pretty average for a new vehicle. And then this is your key. You have unlock, you have lock, you have remote start, which I love, you have power liftgate, one of those extra features on this Platinum model, and you have panic button, but you can leave it in your pocket because you do have proximity key features to lock and unlock the vehicle, which is pretty cool. The door panel is overall, it's pretty nice, but it's not really anything that's going to surprise you or blow your socks off. It's all black, soft touch type of materials. You do have memory seats. You do have B&O speakers on this upgraded one. You do have a handle that you can wiggle your fingers through, which I like, and a snack and bottle holder that's not quite as big as I wish it was. I wish it took up more of the door panel, but overall I think that's going to age pretty nicely because there's not a lot that's relevant to today's time. Otherwise, you have nothing on the door sill. You have cloth mats, rubberized pedals, and dead pedal. To do the hood release, you have to actually pull that 2 times. And then you have what I don't see as any advertised knee airbags on this. That's probably a fuse box right there. And then you have some lighting and power liftgate options right there, ventilation, lighting stock. And then your heated leather seats and your panoramic moonroof up top, which looks really nice. Sitting inside here is actually pretty cool. You have this huge escape computer programmed into the screen. You also have the big 12-inch screen right there. Push button start, the memory seats go to their last position. You have the heads-up display pop up. It's kind of fun, but it's kind of a gimmick, and I don't like that. It's kind of distracting to look at if you want to get right in line like I am right there, if you guys can see that. But it's okay overall. Otherwise, we have the AC on and it's blowing pretty cold. I don't like that all the AC controls and the heated seats and steering wheel and all these features are through the screen. I just don't like that too much. The horn, it's high-pitched, it's loud. This does feel like an old school cheap piece of Ford plastic. It looks a lot like the old Fords. But the leather-wrapped wheel is actually really nice. It feels great. The thickness is fine. You do have tilt and telescope features manually right there. And then if we do come over to the screen, it's not necessarily my favorite. It's not insanely fast at loading, but it does do a number of things. You also have some controls for it down here. Some of your safety features, your camera, part of the Platinum package. The clarity on this one I don't think is as nice as the Explorer ST I hopped out of just recently. And I don't necessarily like that all your different drive modes are right here, and then it pops up at some point. Hopefully. Maybe I need to put my seatbelt on. I wonder if that's part of the deal. Otherwise, maybe the screen has frozen. Or I guess it's stuck in camera mode, so maybe we'll turn that off and now I'll push it. Anyways, I don't love the infotainment system of not just Ford, but basically all of them. And then you can go through it here. But if you want to turn traction control off, you actually have to go through a different screen. So features, you have to go through features, and then you have to go to driver assistance, and then you can turn it off. So anyways, not my favorite, but you have good vents. It actually is blowing super cold on the way over here. You have some plugins, a 12-volt USB and C, wireless charger it looks like, and an extra storage pocket. Here is where I wish the drive modes were, but when you go into reverse just like that, the backup camera pops up and it's really nice. Otherwise, you have electronic parking brake, you have some more safety feature controls you can turn on, and you have your cup holders. You have a little bit of a storage spot right there. And in your center console, you don't have much, but it actually is pretty big for this class of vehicle. Otherwise, you have the glass button and you have the sunshade button. You can do a half or full screen or anywhere in between. And then you have a sunglass holder right there. Garage door controls. Does this slide? Thankfully it does. Does it have lighting? Thankfully it does, but it's not LED, so that's too bad. Anyways, let's turn it off and we'll hop in the back. I'm sure the white color on this looks really good at a distance, but this is where I mentioned I didn't have this one washed just so you guys could see what it actually looks like when the white paint and the black accents are dirty. From a distance, it looks fantastic. Up close, you can tell, but it's not too noticeable. Otherwise, this is the back seat. This is the door panel, basically follows the same theme and design, but you're missing the extra piece of kind of brushed aluminum down there. Otherwise, everything looks about the same. The seats, this is where compact crossovers get into trouble. It can be pretty tight, and that seat is heavier than I think it should be. Also, the legroom doesn't look as big as I see in a lot of other vehicles, but also remember that the seat might be slid back a little bit more because of how that system works for the memory seats. No map pocket back here, so backseat drivers have to sit behind the passenger, but I have enough room. I also have vents, a couple plugins, and an armrest with some cup holders right there. It feels really sturdy. Visibility from back here, it's nice. The windows are big enough. My head is not interfering with the sunroof or the sunshade or anything like that. And then with this handle here, I can recline, so it doesn't give me any more knee room, but it gives me a lot of headroom, and I like that quite a lot. But with that said, let's hop out and I'll show you the hatch. For those of you guys who watch my channel, you know the drill by now. Anyways, if you're new here, there are about 4 ways to open the hatch on this. You can either push the button that's on the dashboard, you can climb through the back seats, you could push the button that's underneath the Ford emblem next to the camera, or you could use the power lift gate on the remote, which you paid for. It says to push it twice. It actually engaged really quickly, and it's opening up very nicely. You have over 30 cubic feet of room back here. If you do have the hybrid, you're going to lose a few cubic feet, and then if you drop the seats on a non-hybrid, you have up to 65. So you actually have quite a bit of storage back here. This almost looks like ventilation, but I don't think it is because it's the same thing down there. There's a bag clip, there's a little clip right there, there's a speaker right there. There's not much else to talk about. And then you have the temporary spare tire down here with your own little fuel siphon device right there, your funnel. Looks like one of the computers for the car. And then you have an inflatable kit for your tire, which I find interesting because you don't usually get both of these. But hey, I'm not going to complain and risk Ford taking that away. Otherwise, you can lower it down, but you can't lock and lower it like you can on some other vehicles. And then if you're the lucky duck who gets to ride shotgun, maybe you didn't have to pay for the vehicle, but you don't have to ride in the back, you get to still enjoy a nice front view. Your door panel, it's going to look very similar to the driver's side minus the extra controls. You still have power options, but you're losing, it looks like, one of the buttons right there. And then you have a nice heated leather seat. The backpack is having a good time today. But there's no storage on the transmission tunnel, nor is there above the glove box, and it's also non-locking. So those are things I wish were better. This also barely opens, and it opens at such an awkward angle. Kind of interesting, but at least it's sized proportionally for this class of vehicle. Anyways, guys, let's come around to the front. I'm gonna pop the hood and I'll show you what the 2-liter turbo engine looks like. Even at 40 grand, you're not getting shocks, you're getting a prop rod. But this is why you bought this vehicle, at least this is a portion of it. This is the 2-liter turbo EcoBoost engine. It makes 250 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 280 pound-feet of torque at 3,000 RPM. And while those might not be class-leading numbers in this class of vehicle, this is actually one of the fastest crossovers in this class. And it's surprisingly good. I think the power numbers are a very flat torque curve. I don't think it's a peaky engine. I think it just has a lot of power throughout. But you can see your reservoirs on the periphery. Your battery looks like maybe some fuse box connections there. You have induction through the grill, and then the airflow goes through the turbo in the very back at the bottom. If you guys can see that, it looks like it's right there. Then it comes back around and goes into the intake manifold side. It looks like the filter in the box must be right there. And overall, you know, there's actually a lot of room to work on this. There's kind of the transmission, transaxle sort of thing. And even though it is a transversely mounted engine, the serpentine belt is right there. You can get to the beginnings of, look at how thin that little serpentine belt is in the alternator. So hopefully maintenance is not often needed, and hopefully it's pretty easy to work on. But this looks like a pretty good, pretty straightforward front-wheel drive focused engine. Anyways, let's take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the 2025 Ford Escape. Partial throttle, this thing does a pretty good job to get you right up to the highway speed limit. It's not super windy out, but I haven't noticed a lot of wind and road noise today on these all-season tires. The vehicle seems to be pretty well insulated. It is kind of interesting noticing the glass pop-up for the heads-up display. It's not the best unit I've seen, but it does work pretty well. I just wish that the glass was actually on the windshield, not its own piece, because I find that a little bit distracting. I also don't love having to reach over to the passenger side for the volume knob, but you can also operate a lot of the controls through the screen. And if you're just going to be focused on the driving experience, being in this Escape, which has been around for a few years of this generation, it's comfortable. It's really composed on the road. There's just a tiny bit of dead space before the steering kicks in. The brakes under partial pedal seem to do a really good job too. These 2-liter turbo EcoBoost engines, I've always been really impressed with them. Driving the Ford Maverick and the Bronco Sport with this engine, it just feels really punchy. I think you guys are going to be impressed with the 0 to 60 pretty soon. But before we get to that, it's worth mentioning that after driving around for a few minutes, having the heated steering wheel on It's warm. Having the heated seats on, they're really warm. Some of the best in this class. I think Ford does a really good job with this. And overall, just great visibility all around. It's a nice vehicle to drive. It doesn't feel huge while competing with some other crossovers that do seem to feel a little bit larger than what this is. I think Ford did a really good job designing this, and I'm not surprised why they sell over 140,000 units just about every single year. But with that said, let me get to the private road and we'll do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the 2025 Ford Escape. Density altitude's 4,500 feet, so even though this is turboed, it's still down on power, probably 6 to 7%. Traction's off, sport mode is on. Here's a brake rev. Let's see what it can do. That's a seriously impressive 0 to 60, 6.83, or a little bit faster if you discredit rollout. My final thoughts of the 2025 Ford Escape Platinum with the 2-liter turbo. You guys just saw the GPS graph. This is pretty quick. To do anything in the 6s at our altitude is actually really impressive. For reference, a lot of the muscle cars, the naturally aspirated ones, they only bust out low 5-second 0 to 60s. So this has a lot of things going for it. It has a lot of tech, a lot of nice features that you guys are going to want. And overall, being a 5-star crash test rated vehicle, having all-wheel drive, even though it might not be as good as Mazda or Subaru or some of the other systems, I do think it is nice to have it. And I do think that this vehicle offers you a lot. But any crossover that's not like a luxury brand in the $40,000 ballpark, that's where I have trouble. That's a lot of money for a compact crossover class of vehicle. Is it worth it? Sure. Is it going to be a nice driving experience? Sure. But if you are going to spend that much, test drive the competition. Go have fun, make a day out of it, drive a half dozen different vehicles, and then sleep on your thoughts. And don't rush into a decision, because that is a lot of money. But this vehicle, it offers you a lot. It's pretty quick, and I had a lot of fun driving it today. Anyways, guys, if you got anything out of my video today, please consider liking this. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. If you own one of these, let me know how your impressions of it have been, and do you recommend it? What rating would you give it? 0 out of 10 stars? Maybe something like that? Anyways, guys, I'm just being silly now, so thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, like the video, and check out Goodyear Motor Ford, one of the best Ford dealerships in the nation, and in fact the oldest one in the state of Idaho, which is pretty darn cool. With that said, I wish you guys the best. Hope you take care, and until next time, see ya.